Are we going to make this a more inclusive economy, a more inclusive society, a more fair, just society? If that's our North Star, and we keep on tacking in that direction, we're going to make progress.
President Obama yesterday making the case for a more inclusive economy. And today we are seeing progress on that front.
Today, the payoff for workers demanding bigger paychecks. Minimum wage in Chicago gets a boost from $8.25 to $10 an hour. It's estimated today's boost will immediately impact the wages of more than 200,000 workers, like Stephanie Copps, who says $10 an hour will help her provide for her 5-month-old son.
Living check by check, you know, and you had to get paid. You had to pay bills. Bills don't wait.
The reality is there's not many businesses that are paying $7.25 anymore, and you can hardly hire anybody at that wage.
Mayor Greg Fisher says that's why it was time for a change in Louisville to give working families more money in their paychecks so they can reinvest in the local economy.
Minimum wage hikes today, not just in Chicago and Louisville, but also in Washington, D.C., and the entire state of Maryland. It's a huge step in the right direction. Protesters have been fighting for these increases across the country for months, and the American people are behind them. 71% think the federal minimum wage should be raised by nearly $3 an hour. Yes, this is a political and economic issue, but it's also a moral issue, and we need to talk about it that way. Joining me now is Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor in the Clinton administration and an economics professor at UC Berkeley. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Rep.
So this is good news today, but why aren't wage hikes like this happening nationwide?
Well, they're happening piecemeal around the country. Certain cities are doing it. It's not happening nationwide because Republicans in Congress refuse to budge on $7.25, which is now the minimum wage. It's been the minimum wage. They will not raise the minimum wage. I think this is going to be an election issue because most people around this country do feel it is a moral issue. It's not just an economic issue. People deserve to have more than $7.25 an hour.
You know, Republicans like Michigan Governor Rick Snyder are actually trying to stop cities from raising the minimum wage on their own. Quote, yesterday, Snyder signed a bill banning towns in Michigan from setting local minimum wages above the state rate. The Republican governor signed the bill because he wants to avoid creating a patchwork of varying regulations across the state. How can progress be made when lawmakers are putting bills like this one into effect, Secretary?
Well, I think what's going to happen is you're getting more and more of the public seeing through what the Republicans are doing. I mean, Republicans are not responding to the groundswell of public eagerness to raise the minimum wage and provide at least a living wage for most Americans. Instead, Republicans are doing the bidding of big business. And as more and more Americans understand what Republicans are doing, we're going to see a response in 2016. In state after state, in city after city, where Republicans have held back the minimum wage, people are just going to say, no, we've had it. We don't want just big business to see their profits increase and actually the share of the entire economy going to working people continue to decrease. We want this economy to work for all people.
Well, let's look at the stats on that point right there, because the poverty line for a family of four is about $22,000 a year, but someone making the federal minimum wage only brings in about $15,000 a year. How the greatest country in the world let people work full-time but still live below the poverty line?
Well, you know, not only is it below the poverty line, but that minimum wage today is 25% below what it was in 1968, if you adjust for inflation. And those people below the poverty line, you know, we provide Medicare and housing assistance, and we provide food stamps. Taxpayers are subsidizing corporations that refuse to provide their workers a minimum wage. And by the way, these are not just teenagers. In fact, most minimum wage workers today are major breadwinners for their families. They need an increase in their wages. If they had an increase in their wages, they'd turn around and buy more stuff that would help the local economy. We know that. There have been study after study showing that.
Professor Robert Reich, thank you for your time tonight.